We often think that happiness is the ultimate reward, the result of a chain of right decisions, of complete love, and of warm and understood relationships. But that is merely the surface. Carl Jung believed that one truly matures only by daring to descend into one's depths, the dwelling place of shadows, unseen wounds, and parts we have once rejected. There, happiness is no longer a fleeting, pleasant emotion, but a stable inner state, one in which we can stand firm amid emotional storms without losing our sense of self. A happy woman, in this sense, is not someone who always smiles, is always loved, or is always heard. She may walk through frozen silences, face dark jealousy, and accept rejection without allowing it to touch the core of her values. For she does not live by expectations, but by depth. She has made peace with her inner shadows, and this very reconciliation creates an unshakable peace. We do not find the light by pretending everything is fine. We find the light when we dare to name our fears, when we remain still in silence without running away, when we observe jealousy without judgment, and when we accept rejection without needing to prove anything more. That is when the journey of individuation begins, and a woman, when stepping onto this path, no longer remains only herself, but becomes all that she can become. Part 1. Silence, not indifference, but a mirror of reflection, the mirror of silence. Number 1. Understanding the nature of silence. Silence according to Jung. There is a type of silence that neither wounds nor withers the heart. It is an extraordinary kind of silence, where words cease, yet something deep and authentic whispers from within. In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, silence is not meaningless emptiness. It is the sacred space where the unconscious begins to speak. Jung never viewed silence as the end of communication, but as the beginning of a dialogue with the inner self, with the shadow, and with unknown aspects of our being. In a letter to one of his patients, Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Silence is the doorway leading to this inward gaze. When external conversations cease, when life's noise no longer fills the mind, we are forced to confront what moves beneath the surface. Unnamed emotions, buried memories, unacknowledged desires. A happy woman, in the Jungian sense, does not fear silence. She has learned that behind that silence lies not cold indifference, but an opportunity to honestly listen to herself. She does not rush to label, "He's silent. It must mean he no longer loves me." Nor does she let her mind drift into speculation. "I'm not good enough. That's why I'm ignored." Instead, she asks, "Why does this silence frighten me? What do I need from others that I haven't yet learned to give myself?" She enters that space like stepping into a dark room, without immediately turning on the light, allowing her eyes to adjust gradually to the darkness, slowly recognizing its outlines, and eventually seeing herself clearly in the mirror. In dreams analyzed by Jung, silence often accompanies imagery of water, a still lake surface, a deep ocean, or an ancient well. These symbols represent the depths of the unconscious, where truth is communicated not by words, but felt through presence. One of Jung's patients dreamed she dove into a lake and discovered a box containing forgotten childhood memories. In actual therapy sessions, silence between her and Jung became a catalyst, for it was precisely in moments of silence, when few words were exchanged, that the deepest wounds began to unfold. Disclosure does not always require shouting. Sometimes, Only in sufficient stillness can the mind dare to speak. Silence is also where Jung discovered what he termed autonomous complexes, psychological fragments operating independently, often beyond conscious control. When left alone in silence, forgotten parts of ourselves often rise. The abandonment complex, feelings of inferiority, or suppressed childhood anger. A happy woman does not seek to suppress these parts. She lets them emerge. She listens. She takes notes. She breathes with them, and little by little, integrates these fragments back into her wholeness. This is precisely the process Jung called individuation. Not everyone dares to sit quietly in silence. For many, silence triggers an impulse. They must do something to escape the emptiness, calling someone, texting someone, blaming themselves, accusing others. Jung warned about this unconscious reactive habit. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Only when we recognize that the discomfort in silence comes from within ourselves can we cease being controlled by it. A woman who has embarked on a spiritual journey realizes silence is not the absence of love, but an opportunity to measure the depth of a relationship, first and foremost with herself. When she can sit with silence without feeling incomplete, when her heart no longer tightens due to communication gaps, when she no longer needs answers to feel safe, at that moment, she reaches an inner freedom that no one can take away. Silence is a mirror. It does not lie, judge, or evaluate. It simply reflects precisely what is happening within. A happy woman does not shy away from that mirror. She stands before it, gazes into her own eyes, and nods in acceptance of the truth that appears. I am here, with all my truth, and that is enough. Number 2, reactions of the immature woman. However, not everyone is ready to step into that mirror of reflection. For many, especially when old wounds remain unhealed, silence no longer provides a space for inner listening, but turns into an invisible storm roaring within. Even a harmless pause, the silence of another person, can be interpreted by the brain as a sign of hatred, betrayal, or abandonment. That is when the immature part of the psyche, the unintegrated ego, surfaces, filling the silence with anxiety, assumptions, and uncontrolled reactive behaviors. A woman who has not undertaken her inner growth journey often cannot tolerate uncertainty. Silence triggers her, as though sounding an alarm, signaling that something has gone wrong. In this state, her mind operates like an obsessed investigator. Why isn't he replying? What have I done wrong? Am I not good enough? Each question cuts like a tiny blade into the fragile self-esteem she desperately tries to protect. She begins texting incessantly, checking the online status of the other person, and scanning social media for any vague clues. Each unanswered message further erodes her self-worth. Jung described this phenomenon as the dominance of the small ego, unintegrated into the greater self. In his 2 essays on analytical psychology, he wrote, "As long as the ego knows only its standpoint, it runs the danger of seeing everything from one narrow, subjective angle and reacting accordingly. When a psychologically immature woman encounters silence, she views everything through a distorted personal lens, where every silence is a threat, and every distance signals a lack of love. From an analytical psychology perspective, this reaction often stems from past complexes, particularly the abandonment complex. A girl who grew up without sufficient emotional presence from a parent may develop a belief that silence always signifies coldness and abandonment. If unrecognized and untransformed, this belief continues to operate unconsciously, influencing all future intimate relationships. Carl Jung warned, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. Unresolved conflicts manifest as unnecessary suffering. In such cases, instead of sitting down and dialoguing with her true feelings, she flees into clingy, controlling, and demanding behaviors." A clear example is seen in romantic relationships. When a message is left on "seen" without response, she feels her world collapse. The pain from this minor action does not stem from the current situation, but from unhealed memories. In therapy, Jung demonstrated that intense emotional activation signals a deeply rooted unconscious reaction. She is not simply angry at her lover's silence. She is reliving feelings of being ignored, rejected, and undervalued by her parents in the past. Unaware of this, she becomes trapped in a reactive loop, unable to choose a different response. In many cases, this loss of control further pushes the woman into self-destructive states, blaming herself, diminishing her self-worth, or even embracing the role of a perpetual victim, a manifestation of what Jung termed the victim archetype. She ceases to be a living subject and instead becomes the projection of old wounds, repeating familiar scripts as if life were an endless cycle of hurting and being hurt. Yet Jung never condemned or judged such reactions. On the contrary, he saw them as valuable signals, doorways leading to a deeper understanding of the ego and unconscious complexes. But to pass through this door, a woman must learn to pause, not to react hastily, not to chase the first emotion that arises. Instead, she must learn to observe her inner world honestly, compassionately, and patiently. Because maturity, according to Jung, does not come from controlling others, but from the ability to observe oneself in chaos without losing one's center. As he wrote, "Knowing your darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." When an immature woman learns to befriend silence, she is no longer torn apart by it. Instead, she discovers the message silence brings, and from there begins the genuine process of individuation. Number 3. The response of the happy woman. When silence is no longer seen as the enemy but embraced as a teacher, a woman begins to shift from instinctive reactions to conscious maturity. She no longer rushes to fill the space with busyness, words, or desperate messages. Instead, she pauses. And that precise moment of pausing is where a new form of presence emerges, the presence of a deeper self speaking up. Jung believed that when external noises quiet down, the inner voice becomes loud enough to be heard. The question for you is, when was the last time you genuinely listened to your inner self? The happy woman understands that silence isn't punishing her, but rather, unacknowledged emotions within are demanding recognition. She turns inward like an explorer, walking step by step through the darkness of loneliness, fear, and abandonment. At that depth, she not only touches her emotions, but also encounters the archetypes dwelling in her unconscious. One of the first archetypes emerging from silence is often the orphan. The child once left alone, unheard, always waiting for external validation to feel worthy. When a woman experiences silence from her partner, the pain she feels is not merely from his absence, but the awakening of the forgotten child within. Jung called this the complex, an autonomous emotional pattern operating beyond rational control. A girl who experienced emotional neglect in childhood will easily feel hurt by others' silence because she unconsciously assigns to it the same message: I'm not important enough to be kept. So, what does the happy woman do with this truth? She does not ignore it. She does not brush it aside. She enters her inner ritual, a sacred space she creates to process emotions with reverence. Perhaps it's a morning sitting alone by the window with a journal, where she records every emerging emotion without judgment. Perhaps it's 15 minutes of meditation, focusing only on her breath and body, grounding herself in the present rather than spiraling into speculation. Or simply, it's daring to sit still, not chasing the question, why is he silent? But returning to the more authentic question, what do I need from myself that I am seeking from someone else? Have you ever turned silence into such a sacred moment? If not, try it once, and you may be surprised by what you discover within yourself. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot become who you truly are if you constantly allow others' reactions to determine your worth." The happy woman understands this. She reclaims her power, not by forcing the other person to speak, respond, or love her back, but by affirming to herself, I cannot control the silence of others, but I control how I show up to it. I am not abandoned. I am allowed to return to myself. And at that moment, silence ceases to cause pain and instead becomes the lamp illuminating the deepest part of her being. She no longer needs external validation to feel whole, no longer equates her worth with fleeting attention, and no longer fears sitting alone with her own emotions. That is not numbness. It is stability born from awareness, an inner freedom no one can take away. It is the result of having made the darkness conscious, as Jung said. And on that journey, she not only heals the orphan child within, but also awakens the wise woman she was born to become. Part 2. Jealousy, the doorway into the shadow, jealousy and the shadow. Number 1. Jealousy as an expression of the shadow, according to Jung. Nobody wants to admit that they are jealous. Jealousy has long been labeled as a sign of weakness, insecurity, and even toxicity. But viewed through Carl Jung's lens, jealousy is nothing to be ashamed of. It is a doorway, a crucial psychological threshold that, once crossed, allows you to see more clearly the shadow within yourself, what Jung calls the shadow. In analytical psychology, the shadow is not evil. It represents the sum of all parts of ourselves that have been rejected, suppressed, or never fully allowed to live. Jung writes in Psychological Aspects of the Personality, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort." This means recognizing our own shadow requires not only intelligence, but also profound courage and ethical honesty. And no emotion exposes the shadow more effectively than jealousy. Jealousy is the cry of a part of you that has been neglected. When you see someone else being more loved, more successful, freer, and instead of joy, you feel pain, it is not their fault. It is a message from within. There is something inside me longing to live like that, but I have not allowed it. Have you ever been jealous of another woman's charm, someone else's confidence, or even the carefree nature of someone who dares to speak their mind without fear of judgment? If so, don't rush to shame yourself. Jung taught that we often project our shadow onto others. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This is where jealousy becomes extraordinarily valuable if you're clear-eyed enough to look at it not through the lens of a victim, but as a student. Jealousy is a mirror reflecting what you have unconsciously rejected. The longing to be loved, to shine, to be authentically yourself without needing permission. A woman jealous because her lover looks towards someone else may be refusing to face her fear of replacement, rooted in the distorted belief, "I am not enough." Yet this feeling is not meant to be suppressed, but confronted directly. Behind it might very well be an unlived archetype: the lover, the queen, or the rebel, inner figures embodying vitality, power, and individuality, long suppressed by fear or culture. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what exactly am I jealous of? Why does this touch me so deeply? What within me longs to live but has been neglected? Jung believed the shadow can only be transformed if brought into consciousness, not by repression. He writes in Ion, researches into the phenomenology of the self. To confront a person with his shadow is to show him his light. Do you dare cross the threshold of jealousy to touch that inner light? Number 2, the reaction of the immature woman. Not everyone is ready to see jealousy as a mirror. For most of us, especially when our inner foundation is still fragile, jealousy triggers defensive reactions. It easily turns into controlling behavior, comparison, or even self-destruction. An emotionally immature woman does not know that jealousy is a valuable signal. Instead, she lets it drive her actions, secretly checking phones, tormenting her partner, replaying endless betrayal scenarios in her head, and worse, diminishing herself in comparison to the other woman, even if that woman is just a stranger, a social media photo, or a passing conversation. She believes that if she were prettier, more interesting, or even less needy, everything would be fine. But the truth is, nothing external can soothe the inner sense of lack if the ego remains wounded. Jung called these responses expressions of the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted, but which also distances us from our true selves. The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is. Carl Jung, Collected Works Volume, Divyati. Have you ever been in that situation? So jealous that you wanted to change your entire self just to keep someone from leaving? If so, know that you are not alone. But also, do not stop there, because the response of the happy woman is entirely different. She does not run from jealousy, nor let it control her. She looks at it directly, not with shame, but with the courage of someone seeking to understand herself. She asks, "What am I missing that makes me feel jealous? And more importantly, what part of myself have I abandoned that I now seek in someone else?" Number 3, the response of the happy woman. This is the moment of transformation, when the question no longer points outward but turns inward. When comparison is no longer about who is better, but about uncovering the dormant potential within. Maybe she is jealous because the other person dares to speak their truth, while she constantly self-censors for fear of judgment. Maybe she envies someone's attractiveness, while she long ago abandoned her femininity in pursuit of being the safe woman. Maybe she envies another's success, though deep inside, she once dreamed of a bolder path, but gave up out of fear of failure. Jung called these unlived parts the unlived life, and he believed that nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. The development of personality. The happy woman does not see jealousy as proof of failure, but as a clue to what is missing in her individuation journey. She dares to face it, to ask, and to move forward to integrate the self that was never fully lived, because she knows that only by doing so can the shadow lose its control over her life. She does not need to eliminate others to feel enough. She needs to connect with the deeper parts of herself to become the most authentic and whole version of who she truly is. Are you living fully with all your potential? Or are you still denying, avoiding, or projecting it onto others? That question is not easy to answer, but the moment you start asking it, you have already opened the door to individuation. Part 3. Rejection, a test of the self. Rejection and the self. Number 1. Rejection does not define personal worth. If jealousy is the alarm bell from the shadow, the place where the unlived parts rise and demand the right to exist, then rejection is the final test to know whether we have truly stepped into the journey of individuation. Nothing challenges the ego more than not being welcomed, not being chosen, not being loved in return. And while jealousy can hide behind the masks of care or attachment, rejection is bare and merciless. It strikes at the deepest part of the self and poses a cruel question. If I am no longer the one who is desired, then who am I? A woman not truly connected to herself often has no clear answer to this question. So accustomed to defining her value through the eyes of others, she feels empty when rejected. Without the loving gaze of the other, without being needed, she falls into inner panic, as if her very existence has faded. But this does not reflect weakness. It reflects the degree of connection between her and the self, the integrated totality of the psyche, as understood by Carl Jung. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung writes, "The self is not only the center, but also the whole circumference which embraces both conscious and unconscious. It is the center of this totality, just as the ego is the center of consciousness." This means the ego is the center of the conscious part of the psyche, while the self is the center of the entire being, conscious and unconscious. Only when a person connects with the self can they feel an intrinsic sense of value that does not change, whether they are accepted or rejected. Only then does rejection stop being a denial of the self and become a necessary experience on the path to becoming who they truly are. Have you ever been rejected? A relationship that went nowhere, a dream that never materialized, a door that closed despite all your effort. Be honest with yourself. How did you respond? Did you blame the other person, blame fate, or turn on yourself with criticism, shame, and punishment for not being enough? These reactions are deeply human, deeply common. But if you pause for a moment and ask a deeper question, where am I placing my self-worth? You might see that rejection is a reset button, a chance to examine where you've unconsciously handed someone else the authority to define your worth. A happy woman is not immune to pain. She still hurts, still feels the sting, still has moments of weeping until no tears are left. But afterward, she returns to herself. She understands, I gave too much power to someone else, and now it's time to reclaim it. She knows her worth doesn't come from being chosen, but from choosing herself first. She reconnects with the self, not through praise, not through pursuit, but through mindful presence. in meditation, in journaling, in quiet, wordless conversations with the self within. Jung once warned in The Undiscovered Self, "As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being." Rejection, in this sense, is darkness, and if we are brave enough not to shrink back but to light a flame inside it, we will not only move through the pain, but draw closer to the essence of who we are. You might ask yourself right now, if I am no longer the one who is loved, chosen, praised, then who am I? And if you do not yet have the answer, that is not a problem. The only problem is that you never dare to go searching for it. Because every time you are rejected and still hold your dignity, still know your worth, still live in truth with what you believe, that is one more step on the path of individuation Jung described. It is not an easy path, but it is the path that leads to the deepest kind of freedom. Number 2. The reaction of the immature woman. Not everyone has the strength to face rejection without losing themselves. Especially when the ego is not yet stable, when self-esteem still relies on the reactions of others, rejection can easily become a devastating blow to one's sense of worth. An inwardly immature woman often reacts to rejection in 3 ways: clinging, self-blame, and losing her sense of value. She tries to cling to whatever is left: a phone call, an explanation, even a sympathetic glance. She attempts to change herself, to be loved again, dressing differently, speaking less, becoming softer or stronger, anything that might reverse the outcome. Deep down, she equates love with proof of existence. If he doesn't need me, then what meaning do I have? This is a deeply human response, but also a dangerous one, if not brought to light. Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." Instead of allowing herself to feel the pain healthily, to face it, feel it, and let it pass, this woman falls into a state of distress, chasing, forcing, even distorting her values just to buy back acceptance. But the price she pays is inner disintegration. Another common response is self-blame. She replays every word, every action, wondering, did I say something wrong? Was I too demanding? Was I not attractive enough? Over time, these questions no longer serve as a reflection, but become a self-inflicted indictment. From a once confident woman, she becomes one who doubts herself at every turn. She no longer sees herself as someone learning how to love, but as someone who has failed at love. Are you caught in this loop, living with questions that erode your self-worth just because someone chose not to stay? If so, pause. Jung pointed out that any time the ego is wounded, the shadow rises, and if we are not aware, it will take control of our entire consciousness. The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. Carl Jung, Modern Man in Search of a Soul. When an immature woman is rejected, she not only grieves the loss of a relationship, she grieves as if she has lost the right to be loved, respected, and present as she truly is. But in this very moment, if she stops to observe her reactions, to ask instead of assume, rejection can become the first turning point on the path back to the self. Number 3, the reaction of the happy woman. Not everyone dares to walk straight into pain without defenses, but a happy woman who has traveled through the depths of the shadow and understands the value of staying with herself chooses to do exactly that. She looks directly at the pain of rejection without running from it. She does not drown it in busyness, does not deny it with phrases like, "I'm fine," and does not cover it up with anger. She sits with it, lets it exist like a guest that needs to be heard, not fixed. Jung once wrote, "Emotion is the chief source of all becoming. There is no change from darkness to light or from inertia to movement without emotion. No transformation happens without emotion. And a happy woman knows if she wants to evolve, she must allow her heart to hurt with awareness. When rejected, she does not confuse herself with the experience. She does not say, 'I was rejected, therefore I am not enough.' Instead, she tells herself, 'I was rejected, but I am not worthless.' She knows that rejection is an inevitable part of life, but worth is not something given. It is something already present within, needing no one's permission to exist. She understands that someone may choose not to be with her, but that does not mean her value has diminished, because she does not give others the authority to define her. And that is when the image of the inner queen rises, the archetype of the queen, symbol of the woman who has claimed sovereignty over her inner world. She no longer begs for validation, but chooses to act from a place of power, choosing love, choosing withdrawal, choosing dignity. The queen is not shaken by rejection, because she knows her throne does not lie in anyone else's hands. Have you ever envisioned that image within yourself? Not a queen in the material sense, but someone who stands firm in her dignity, even when no one is applauding. Someone who knows when to say, "Thank you, but no," even when it hurts. Someone who needs no revenge to prove her value, because that value was established by her long ago. She uses rejection not as a sentence, but as a spiritual test. Instead of asking, "Why didn't they want me?" she asks, "What part of myself have I forgotten to love?" That question brings her back to the self, to the unshakable center of her being, where self-worth needs no external trigger to come alive. Jung emphasized this in the relations between the ego and the unconscious. The goal of the individuation process is the synthesis of the self. The goal of individuation is not to be loved by someone else, but to become the one who lives fully with oneself, in both light and shadow, in strength and vulnerability, in being chosen and being left behind. A happy woman understands this truth. Every time she is not chosen, she has the opportunity to choose herself again, more deeply, more sincerely. And when she does, rejection is no longer the end, but a quiet corridor leading her back to the strongest part of her being. No one walks through life without being wounded at least once. But some do not collapse because of it. They are not cold nor numb. They have simply learned how to embrace pain as an essential part of the journey to becoming who they truly are. That is the image of the inner female hero, the happy woman as defined by Carl Jung. She does not run from silence because she understands that sometimes the deepest truths need no words. She does not fall before jealousy because she knows it is a message from the unlived part of her being. She does not break from rejection because she knows that no one has the power to take away the worth she has found within. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and the journey to becoming oneself is never a straight, smooth path. It is a journey through darkness, through experiences that strip away the outer masks so that we may face the true self waiting to be named." Silence, jealousy, and rejection, if you are clear-eyed enough to pause, to look into them, and to learn from them will no longer be obstacles. They become spiritual tests, gateways to profound inner awakening. And once you move through them, you will not only become more grounded, you will awaken the primal strength that has been dormant within you, the strength of freedom, dignity, and wholeness. So, if you are in a moment of cold silence, burning jealousy, or bitter rejection, do not be too quick to believe you are failing. It may be that you are standing at the threshold of the most important passage in your life. And the real question is not, why is this happening, but rather, who will I become after all of this? If you are on a journey to understand yourself more deeply, to heal the unlived parts of you, and to awaken the inner heroine within, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we bring you insights from Carl Jung, tools for inner transformation, and reminders that you are not alone on this path. The journey to becoming yourself begins with awareness, and sometimes all it takes is one video at the right moment for everything to change. Stay with us, and let's go deep together. A passing remark, a glance, a tone of voice, and suddenly something inside you ignites. Your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, your thoughts spiral out of control. You try to stay calm, but it's already too late. You either lash out in anger or spend hours stewing in your mind, wondering why something so small could affect you so deeply. Carl Jung believed that anger isn't your fault. It's a sign of something deeper, a warning, an awakening. When someone triggers your anger, they're not just being annoying, they're a mirror reflecting a part of you that hasn't yet healed. You beat yourself up. Why am I so sensitive? But the truth is, most of us are. Not because we're weak, but because we're unaware. And here's the deeper truth. You don't need to fix them. You need to come back to yourself. To be honest, to be free, to be whole. It means looking into the mirror and realizing, no one can control my emotions unless they touch a part of me I haven't dared to face. In today's video, I'll guide you on a journey back to yourself. Stay until the end. I'll reveal powerful ways to transform your emotions so they no longer control you. Let's begin. Number 1. The origin of your reactions lies within you. You think you're reacting to someone's attack, their disrespect, their sarcasm, their dismissive look. But the deeper and more painful truth is that you're responding to a part of yourself. The other person is merely a trigger. What erupts within you, the rage, the sting, the tightness, comes from something much older, much deeper, and closer than you think. Carl Jung said, "People don't have ideas. Ideas have people." Every time you feel insulted, diminished, or hurt, it's rarely because the other person has the power to bring you down. It's because they've touched a wound in you that was never healed. Imagine a coworker casually saying, "You didn't quite get this right." A completely normal remark in a workplace. But instead of simply hearing it and making adjustments, your chest heats up. You feel belittled, inadequate, and unworthy. That night, you can't sleep. Not because the words were harsh, but because they struck an old wound, maybe from childhood, when a parent or teacher always pointed out your flaws and never acknowledged your efforts. That child in you was never seen. And now, the coworker, without even meaning to, has awakened that child. This is the heart of emotional reactivity. It's not about the present, it's a doorway into the past. We're not angry at the person in front of us. We're reacting to a memory, a wound, a story we never resolved. Jung called these reactions the marks of complexes, emotional knots tied to memories and images from the past. A glance, a voice, a look from someone else, any of these can trigger an intense response if they connect to hidden, unprocessed parts of us. Jung believed that each of us carries a system of complexes, operating silently like emotional landmines. Touch one, and it explodes. Not because of logic, but because of unresolved feelings. We think we're reacting to now, but we're being dragged back to a time when we felt not good enough, unloved, unprotected. And here's the harsh truth most people avoid. Your anger isn't their fault. It's a message from within. When someone upsets you, the question isn't, why are they like that? But why did that hurt me so much? The answer always leads inward. What triggers your rage isn't others. It's the part of you that's never been acknowledged, never been seen, never been loved in the way it needed. We grow up learning to wear masks, polite, composed and mature, but inside, wounded children still live, waiting to be heard. Anyone who presses those emotional buttons, whether intentionally or not, can set off your fury. Not because they're powerful, but because they mirror something you haven't faced. Jung called this inner projection. The people we dislike, the ones we can't tolerate, often reflect parts of ourselves we've rejected. If you hate others for being weak, you may be denying your vulnerability. If you despise someone's confidence, perhaps you were punished for expressing yourself and now envy their freedom. Every flash of anger carries a story, and that story always begins with you. A friend once told me, "I hate people who judge others." But the truth is, she spent her life terrified of judgment. That sensitivity to being evaluated made her see judgment everywhere. She didn't hate those people. She was reacting to an unhealed fear within herself. So the real question isn't, how do I stop people from upsetting me? It's, why do I allow them that power over me? And the answer is never in changing the outside world. It lies in understanding your inner one. If seen clearly, anger isn't a loss of control. It's a map, a precise guide pointing to a part of you that's in pain, that needs healing. The problem is, most people don't view anger this way. They fear it. They suppress it, burying a voice that's crying for help. Carl Jung didn't teach us to control others or master every situation. He taught us to recognize the parts within that we've yet to integrate. Anger, irritation, and overreaction are all invitations from the unconscious, asking you to return and meet the part of yourself you've abandoned. The shadow. Number 2, the shadow. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. As long as you don't confront your old wounds, they will continue to run your life like an automatic program, pulling you back into the past through every reaction in the present." All of us carry an inner child, still trembling, still waiting to be loved in the right way. This is the child who was neglected, scolded, and who learned to stay silent to be accepted. And that very child is still running you. In every angry outburst, in every moment you shrink away for fear of being hurt, in every decision made just to please others. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves that have been rejected, denied, or suppressed because they didn't fit the ideal image society expects from us. And the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It sinks deeper, quietly, shaping unconscious reactions that make you hurt in the same way, stumble for the same reasons. Jung believed the unconscious doesn't simply store repressed urges. It transforms them. He saw the unconscious not as a passive container, but as an active force that reshapes what we refuse to see. When a part of ourselves is denied, it doesn't go dormant. It mutates. It tries to express itself through indirect, often destructive ways. The more repressed these parts are, the more symbolically and irrationally they surface. And here's the scary part. The more you avoid the unhealed parts of yourself, the more you attract experiences that force you to face them. Jung called this the projection of the shadow, when what you reject in yourself gets projected onto the world around you. You fear being controlled, and suddenly everyone feels oppressive. You haven't forgiven yourself, and now everyone feels judgmental. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, is there a reaction that keeps showing up in your life? A certain kind of person who always triggers old pain? If so, comment below, not just for yourself, but so others know they're not alone on this path. None of us comes from a perfect past. But that doesn't mean we're bound by it. You don't have to keep living in the grooves of what's already happened. When you're brave enough to face the part left behind, you gain control over what triggers you. You no longer need to get angry just to defend the fragile parts of yourself. When you get angry at someone, you're likely hating a part of yourself reflected in them. The hard truth is, we often get so busy judging the other person that we don't see we're judging a discarded version of ourselves. Anger, when looked at closely, is not hatred of the other, but shame toward a self that was never accepted. For example, maybe you're the peacemaker, the one who avoids conflict, who prides themselves on being mature and kind. But you especially dislike people who are blunt, argumentative, or loud. Every time you meet them, you feel irritated. They seem uncivilized, rude, too much. But the truth is, they're simply expressing a part of you that you've locked away. The right to be angry, to disagree, to express dissatisfaction. Because you've never allowed yourself to do that, seeing someone else doing it becomes unbearable. Not because they're so different, but because they're too similar to the part you've disowned. Jung warned that if you don't recognize and engage with your shadow, it will run your life. The same people will keep making you angry. The same situations will keep pushing your buttons. Not because the universe is mocking you, but because your subconscious is trying to send a message. Look here. This is the part you forgot. The more you reject your shadow, the more it tries to appear through the faces of others, through their actions. And the more you refuse to acknowledge it, the more you'll live with the feeling that people are always the problem. The world is chaotic. But the world is only doing one thing, showing you who you are. No one out there has the power to define you or trigger you, unless something inside you already matches the piece they've touched. The person who enrages you isn't the enemy. They are a signal. The one who irritates you isn't just a personality clash. They're an unfinished lesson. This reflection doesn't come to punish you. It comes to lead you toward the truth. Jung believed the shadow is not something to destroy. It's something to integrate. Integration means this. When someone provokes you, you get curious. When someone disrespects you, you set boundaries without hate. When someone leaves, you let them go without turning it into a story about your worth. That is a strength. Because mastering your emotions isn't about becoming invulnerable. It's about becoming transparent with yourself. You can feel anger, but you choose how to express it consciously. You can feel discomfort, but you ask why before you blame. You can feel hurt, but you don't turn your pain into a weapon. That's real power. Not control, but understanding yourself so deeply that you're no longer manipulated by what you don't understand. When you realize the person who set you off isn't a bad person, but someone who activated your unintegrated shadow, you'll begin to listen to your anger instead of being consumed by it. You'll observe instead of react. You'll learn instead of judging. And in that moment, the person who once drove you crazy will no longer hold power over you, not because they've changed, but because you've faced the part of yourself they once brought to life. That's the foundation for what comes next, where Jung takes us beyond emotional awareness into the art of living with the shadow through a process called integration. Number 3, integration. When Jung said, "The shadow must be integrated," he wasn't telling you to become wild, selfish, or chaotic. He meant you must accept the existence of the parts you've learned to deny. Not to let them control you, but also not to pretend they aren't there. And this is the key Jung emphasized. Healing doesn't come from rejecting emotions, it comes from integrating them. What is integration? It's when you no longer split your inner world into two warring sides, the accepted part and the banished part. It's when you stop labeling emotions as good or bad. It's when you allow both light and shadow to coexist, not letting either dominate and not pushing either away. The mind works like this. Every emotion you feel is temporary, not permanent. But most people get stuck trying to control what they feel, afraid to face their inner world. Instead of listening to emotions, they silence them with distractions, work, entertainment, relationships that offer only temporary comfort, constantly running from what truly needs to be seen. But what if, instead of resisting emotion, you paused? What if, instead of brushing off sadness, you observed it? What if, instead of hiding your fear, you asked what it was trying to tell you? Every emotion carries a hidden message. Sadness often signals something you need to let go of, an attachment that no longer fits you, an unmet expectation, a part of yourself that needs to be released. Fear reveals deep-rooted beliefs about limits, that you're not good enough, not worthy of what you desire, that failure must be avoided at all costs. And this is where the problem begins. The more you resist emotions, the more persistent they become. A suppressed emotion doesn't disappear, it becomes a weight you carry daily, a whisper in your mind, a barrier holding you back, one you might not even notice. Carl Jung once said, "Emotion is the chief source of all becoming." There can be no transforming of darkness into light and of apathy into movement without emotion. Emotion is not a burden. It is the raw material of the deepest human transformation. Imagine a storm. The wind howls, rain pours, the sky turns dark. You try to fight it, pushing against the wind, holding back the rain, resisting the storm's force. But the more you fight, the more exhausted you become. The storm doesn't end because you resist. It ends when you let it pass through. Anger, the emotion we often try hardest to suppress, is a signal. It tells you that your boundaries are being crossed, that something in your environment is disrespecting your true self. When you stop seeing emotion as an obstacle and start seeing it as a guide, something inside you shifts. And when your inner world shifts, so does your outer world. Now think about a situation where you tend to react automatically, maybe an argument with a loved one, a conflict at work, a moment when you feel insecure or under attack. Instead of reacting instinctively, pause, breathe. Observe the scene like a spectator, someone watching from the outside, unattached. Ask yourself, what part of me is reacting right now? Is the situation itself truly hurting me, or is it awakening something that already existed within me? The answer could change everything, because once you understand that what happens outside can only affect you if something inside allows it, you begin to reclaim your power. Jung spoke of the concept of the silent observer, the part of consciousness that isn't swept away by emotion or external events. The space within you that stays calm, no matter what happens. When you access that part of your mind, you realize, no one and nothing has power over you unless you give it to them. Every time something throws you off balance, it's not because the world is unfair or someone hurt you. It's because something in you still needs resolution. And that is the true key to unshakable peace. Not changing the world outside, but transforming how you experience it. When you master this, storms no longer scare you, because you know they're temporary. And behind every storm is an opportunity for growth. If you examine your thoughts deeply, you'll realize many of them don't even belong to you. They were absorbed at some point in your life, accepted unconsciously as absolute truth. You can think of emotions like a river. Control is like building a dam, which stops the water. But the water doesn't vanish. It builds up. And one day, it breaks the banks and washes everything away. Integration is different. It's sitting beside the river, watching it flow, listening to its sound, understanding where it comes from. You don't need to fight anymore. You're no longer afraid, and you're no longer swept away. One woman once shared that she hated feeling jealous. Whenever she saw someone succeed or have something she wanted, she felt ashamed of that small, petty feeling inside. So she tried to be positive, tried to celebrate others, tried to push the feeling away. But the more she pushed, the more it returned, stronger. Until one day, she paused and asked herself honestly, what am I jealous of? Where am I hurting? And she realized she felt jealous because she didn't feel enough. Unrecognized, unseen, unloved in the way she needed. From that moment, jealousy wasn't a sin anymore. It became a key to a forgotten part of her soul. That is integration, not erasing emotion, but giving it a place. Jung emphasized, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. You can't become whole by abandoning parts of yourself just because society says they're not good. Peace is not the absence of emotion. Peace is when you're no longer afraid of your emotions. When you integrate, you no longer need to control your reactions because you understand them at the root. No one can hurt you by touching what you've already accepted. No one can manipulate you by mirroring what you've already integrated. You don't need to hide your wounds anymore. You only need to walk into them, like stepping into a dark room, not to destroy the darkness, but to turn on the light. And when the light of awareness shines, Everything that once made you angry becomes just data. Data to understand yourself better. Next time a limiting thought appears, don't automatically accept it as truth. Observe it, question it, challenge it. Ask, does this belong to me? Or is it just an echo from the past, something I can choose to let go of? When you do, you'll see the only power those thoughts have is the power you give them. And once you're no longer ruled by those hidden fragments, a deeper journey begins. No longer healing in pieces, but returning to the whole of who you are. Number 4, the journey of individuation. Carl Jung never promised happiness. He didn't teach people how to avoid pain or how to stop being affected by others. These he called illusions of an immature ego. What Jung offered us was a journey, not to become perfect, but to become whole. He called it the journey of individuation, the path of a soul daring to step beyond roles and masks to become fully, freely, and unfragmentedly itself. Individuation is not about growing the ego. It is the dismantling of the false self, the self built on parental expectations, societal pressures, and the fear of rejection. It begins when you stop striving to become who you should be and start uncovering who you already are beneath it all. But to get there, you must pass through layers of shadow, forgotten memories, buried emotions you once deemed wrong. And more importantly, you must stop looking for yourself in the eyes of others. Anger, sadness, and discomfort don't come from the outside world. They come from within, from the soul starved too long of living in truth. And the journey of individuation begins the moment you realize, I no longer want to shrink myself to fit anyone else. That is not selfishness. That is honesty. That is liberation. Individuation doesn't happen during peaceful meditation. It happens when you are hurt, betrayed, misunderstood, and instead of blaming, you turn inward and ask, what part of me is being awakened? Not to accuse, but to understand. To understand yourself so deeply that you no longer need anyone to validate who you are. Others may reject you, but you no longer reject yourself. They may misinterpret you, but you no longer need to explain yourself to exist. A woman once shared that she couldn't stand being abandoned. Every time someone went silent, pulled away, or didn't respond, she panicked. But when she traced it back, she saw, as a child, her mother sent her away to others whenever she was sad. No explanation, no questions. She simply disappeared from her mother's world. That child grew up believing she could be discarded at any moment, and that meant she had no worth. So she clung to people's presence to know she existed. Her individuation began when she stopped blaming those who left and instead returned to stay with herself. She learned to sit in loneliness, not mask it with someone new, not beg for affirmation. Just be there, with herself, saying, I see me. I'm not left behind anymore. That was her homecoming. Individuation is when you stop reacting and start choosing, not because you're numb, but because you see the root. When you know where the wound is, you no longer rage when someone touches it. You can set boundaries without resentment. You can walk away without needing to prove you're right. You no longer need to win because you're no longer fighting to survive. Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And the one who steps into individuation is the one courageous enough to shine a light into their darkness, to name the fear, to embrace what was cast out. to give legal place to what was once forbidden. And when that happens, you no longer live on reflex, you live by choice. No one can make you lose your temper. No one can drive you crazy. They still act as they do, but you are no longer led by pain. You respond from awareness, not reaction. That is true power. Not the power to control others, but the power to live authentically without needing a role. If you resonate with what I've shared, leave a sign in the comments, a number, a phrase. Your presence strengthens mine. Individuation is not a destination. It is a lifelong process. But every time you choose truth over facade, every time you listen to your feelings instead of denying them, every time you do what aligns with you, even if it displeases others, you take a step closer to your whole self. Number 5. Practicing inner transformation. Now, try recalling a past situation, perhaps a heated argument with a loved one, words escalating, emotions flaring. In the past, you fell into the same trap, raised voices, letting anger lead. But this time, you remember what Jung said about the shadow. The thing that bothers you most in others is a mirror of what you haven't yet integrated in yourself. Instead of replying with fury, you pause and ask, does this person truly make me feel this way, or is there something deeper? In that moment, you stop being a prisoner of emotion and become its master. Not by suppressing what you feel, but by choosing your response. This subtle shift in perception changes your life. You no longer feel like a victim of circumstance, but start seeing each emotion, each conflict, and each challenge as an opportunity to understand yourself better. You stop reacting from fear or insecurity and begin responding from awareness, knowing that nothing and no one truly has power over you unless you allow it. And when you reach that point, when you begin from awareness instead of reaction, you discover something powerful. Most problems that once seemed overwhelming start to dissolve. Not because the world changed, but because you now see it through a new lens. This is where the concept of emotional responsibility emerges. Every feeling you experience, every thought that passes through your mind, every reaction to the world around you is an opportunity to reclaim authorship over your story. Not by denying what you feel, but by asking, how can I turn this into something that makes me stronger? How can I use it to grow? And in doing so, you realize a deep truth. The lesson was never about them. It was always about you. You understand you don't need anyone to change for you to be at peace. Everything you've been seeking externally has always been within you. This is when your power returns, when you stop blaming others for how you feel and start treating each emotion as a message, a chance to become better. Peace is no longer something you find. It's something you cultivate. And the only one who can define your worth and your feelings is you. In that moment, the world loses its grip on you, because for the first time, you're in control. You're sending a new signal to your mind that old patterns of anxiety, insecurity, or anger are no longer the only path. Each small conscious decision rewrites the code, replacing limiting beliefs with ones that free you. But here's where many get stuck. They want to change, but still cling to their old stories. They keep saying, I'm sensitive, I'm always affected by others, I can't control my emotions. Do you see how these statements become identities? As long as you define yourself this way, you repeat the cycle. But what if you began to question them? What if each time you thought I'm too emotional, you paused and asked, is that true, or just something I've repeated so much that I believe it? This is what needs to change, your internal narrative. Not with empty affirmations, but by creating new experiences that prove your transformation. Jung spoke of the power of integration, bringing what was hidden in the shadow into the light. That means instead of running from pain, you sit with it. You observe it. And instead of rejecting it, you accept it, not as fate, but as part of your story. Because in the end, words only have power if you give them. If someone says you'll never succeed, those words can only hurt if part of you fears they might be true. But if you've done the inner work, if you've built self-trust, their words become white noise, weightless, powerless. And people will ask, how do I get to the point where nothing affects me? Not by convincing yourself of something. That only builds a fragile shield that breaks with the slightest pressure. True strength lies in flexibility, in the ability to feel everything but be ruled by nothing. Carl Jung said real freedom comes when you stop identifying with every fleeting thought and passing emotion. When you learn to observe without attachment, without letting them define you. That's when you unlock a new level of awareness. Consider this. Maybe you often feel used, that you give too much and receive too little. It once made you bitter, made you feel powerless. But now, instead of staying in victim mode, you change the dynamic. You ask, where am I failing to set boundaries? Why is no hard for me? Gradually, you begin establishing clear standards, not from anger, but from self-respect. And you find that when you respect yourself, others begin to follow. When you stop compromising to avoid disapproval, you regain something far more valuable, your peace. And when you change, the world begins responding to this new version of you. Like tuning a radio to a new frequency. When you stop broadcasting low vibrations, you start attracting experiences that resonate with your new energy. Suddenly, what once seemed impossible, calm, confidence and clarity, become your natural state. And as this transformation takes root, you discover something remarkable. The world no longer feels hostile. People no longer hold power over you. Situations that once caused anxiety no longer grip you because you don't see them through the same lens of fear. You are finally in command. And once you taste this freedom, you will never again let anything or anyone steal your peace. Because when you allow yourself to prioritize your peace without guilt, everything in your life begins to align effortlessly. This is when the practice of inner stillness becomes essential. Jung believed the mind is full of noise, an inner dialogue we rarely question. But what happens when you take a moment each day just to be with yourself? No distractions, no phone, no social media, no need to do anything, just you and your presence. In those moments, you begin to notice what you've missed. You become aware of what you truly feel, what needs to change, and what your intuition has been trying to say. In that space, you feel something new, detachment. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that what others say or do has no power to define you. This level of clarity isn't reached overnight. It's a practice, a commitment to return to the role of observer instead of being swept away by emotional waves. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And to do that, you can't keep living like a leaf blown around by every gust of emotional wind. You must choose to become the roots, grounded, steady, no longer trembling at every careless word or thoughtless action. Your emotions now are like passing guests, not absolute truths. Like waves on the ocean, fierce for a moment, but always fleeting. Instead of resisting the current, you simply let it pass through, trusting that on the other side of the storm, peace is always waiting. The world will keep expecting you to react. People will still want to see you angry, sad, disappointed, panicked, as if that's proof you're real. But let me remind you of this. The peace you long for has never been outside of you. It doesn't live in a perfect relationship, a stable job, or a life without friction. It lives in your ability to pause amid the chaos, to take one step back and choose not to react, in your ability to feel everything without being consumed, in your ability to watch emotions rise and smile as if to say, "I see you, but you don't control me anymore." And if you've stayed with me this far, allow me to ask you one final question, one that may change the way you live. Will you continue giving away the authority over your emotions to everything and everyone? Or will you rise, reclaim your full power, and step into life with an unshakable presence? And if you found value in what I've shared, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications today, so you won't miss future videos that help you decode the psyche, human nature, and yourself. Because understanding others is a journey, but understanding yourself is the true liberation.